I never expected a simple dog toy to start a full-blown suburban showdown, but that's exactly what happened. It all began one sunny Saturday morning when I was tossing tennis balls and squeaky toys in my backyard for Max, my energetic golden retriever. Max, as usual, was bouncing with pure joy, his tail wagging like a metronome, as he chased every toy I threw. It was our ritual, a little slice of happiness in an otherwise ordinary neighborhood. But apparently, joy has a way of attracting the wrong kind of attention. Enter Karen. Karen, the queen of complaints and the unofficial HOA enforcer, had apparently taken issue with the chaos in my backyard. She marched over, red-faced and clutching a stack of HOA notices, glaring at Max's scattered toys like they were instruments of destruction. "Your dog's toys are ruining the aesthetic of the neighborhood," she hissed, pointing at a rogue chew toy lying near the edge of the fence. Her tone carried all the authority of a self-proclaimed critic, and all the subtlety of a marching band. I stood there, stunned, trying to process how someone could be so offended by a tiny squeaky bone and a tennis ball. Her complaints didn't stop there. According to her, the colorful dog toys were an eyesore and an ongoing disturbance to the tranquility of our quiet little cul-de-sac. She even suggested I should remove all of Max's toys entirely, or risk being fined by the HOA. I laughed at the absurdity at first, thinking she was joking. But the seriousness in her expression told me otherwise. Karen had made it abundantly clear, my dog's happiness was a direct threat to her sense of order and control. I wanted to respond politely, to explain that Max was just a dog and that toys were a normal part of any pet owner's backyard. But Karen wasn't interested in dialogue. She stormed off, muttering under her breath about negligent pet owners and unsightly clutter. Leaving me standing there with Max, who had just retrieved his favorite squeaky duck and looked at me as if asking, "Is she serious?" It was in that moment, as I watched Karen retreat to her perfectly manicured yard, that a spark of determination ignited in me. I realized that if Karen wanted drama, she was about to get more than she bargained for. Instead of hiding Max's toys or giving in to her ridiculous demands, I decided to escalate, but in a way that was fun, creative, and completely satisfying. I would not only protect Max's happiness but also create something so impressive that even Karen couldn't complain without looking ridiculous. By the end of that morning, I was sketching ideas on paper, fueled by a mix of frustration and excitement. I pictured a massive playground, with slides, unnels, swings, and enough space for Max and his friends to play freely, an entire backyard paradise built just for dogs. And as the sun set, I knew one thing for certain: this project wouldn't just be for Maximum. It would be my cheeky, playful answer to Karen's over-the-top complaints. After that fateful confrontation with Karen, I knew I had to turn my backyard into something extraordinary. I grabbed a notebook, a pen, and my laptop, and began sketching ideas. I wasn't just thinking about a few toys scattered around anymore. I envisioned a full-blown playground, a wonderland where Max could run, jump, and play to his heart's content. My goal was simple: build the ultimate doggy paradise while subtly delivering a message to Karen that Max's happiness would never be compromised. I started with the essentials. Every dog deserves space to run, so the first element was a sprawling open field. I measured my backyard and realized there was just enough room to create multiple play zones. One area would be for fetch, another for obstacle courses, and yet another for lounging. I wanted to incorporate a slide, because why shouldn't dogs experience a little thrill? I also envisioned tunnels for Max to crawl through and a climbing. Structure for him to explore his agility. Every feature had to be safe, engaging, and, most importantly, fun. Next, I thought about durability. Max is not a gentle dog. He jumps, chews, and digs like a professional. The playground needed to withstand all of his energy. I researched materials online, comparing rubber mats, weatherproof wood, and non-toxic plastics. I sketched a design that combined these materials in a way that looked visually appealing while remaining sturdy. Safety was non-negotiable. I made notes about rounded edges, secure fastenings, and shaded areas to protect Max from the summer sun. Every detail was deliberate. Every corner of the playground had a purpose. Of course, I also considered aesthetics. Karen had complained about eyesores, so I wanted this project to look impressive, not chaotic. I imagined vibrant but tasteful colors, soft greens and blues for tunnels and slides, natural wooden textures for climbing areas, and patches of artificial grass to keep the space lush and clean. Even the positioning of toys and agility equipment was carefully planned to maximize both playability and visual appeal. Finally, I added a cheeky touch. Hidden throughout the playground, I placed small areas where motion-activated toys could surprise and delight Max, and, perhaps, unintentionally, frustrate Karen if she happened to peek over the fence. It was subtle, playful, and just the right amount of mischief to satisfy my sense of poetic justice. By the end of the day, I had a full blueprint in front of me: tunnels, slides, swings, fetch zones, climbing structures, and motion-activated surprises. The dream of Max's ultimate doggy playground was now tangible, and I could hardly wait to bring it to life. Karen's complaints had sparked an idea that would turn my backyard into a masterpiece of fun and creativity. With the plans finalized, it was time to turn sketches into reality. I started by clearing the backyard, moving old toys, plants, and debris to make space for Max's ultimate playground. It wasn't just about construction. It was about creating a safe, fun, and visually impressive environment. I could already imagine Max's tail wagging in excitement as he explored every corner of his new wonderland. And yes, part of me was secretly anticipating Karen's reaction too. The foundation came first. I laid down rubber mats in areas where Max would run the most, ensuring a soft surface that could absorb impact. Next, I began assembling the climbing structures. Each piece was carefully measured, leveled, and fastened, because one wrong move could mean an unstable play area, and I refused to risk Max's safety. The slide was installed next, a bright blue curve that promised hours of amusement. I watched as Max circled the construction zone, sniffing each component like he was approving the design. After the main structures, I moved to the tunnels. Lightweight yet sturdy, they twisted and turned across the yard, creating a mini obstacle course. Max's eyes lit up the moment I unrolled them. Then came the swings, designed specifically for small and medium dogs. Each swing was securely anchored, and I even added a soft landing pad below. By this point, the backyard was starting to look less like a typical yard and more like a professional dog park. Next, I tackled the finishing touches. Artificial grass filled gaps between play zones, giving the playground a lush, clean appearance. Water bowls were strategically placed for hydration, and shaded areas were created with canvas covers to protect Max during hot afternoons. The motion-activated toys were installed in hidden spots, ready to surprise Max with interactive fun. Every element was intentional, from the placement of squeaky toys to chew-resistant ropes, making sure Max's playground was both functional and entertaining. Throughout the process, I kept a running mental tally of Karen's potential reactions. Would she be outraged? Confused? Perhaps even speechless? The thought made me smile as I adjusted a slide here and repositioned a tunnel there. Max, on the other hand, was oblivious to all the human drama. His focus was purely on exploration and fun. The joy in his eyes made every hour of construction worthwhile. By the time the sun began to set, the playground was complete. Vibrant, fun, and impressively large, it transformed my backyard into a canine paradise. Max ran through tunnels, slid down the slide, and jumped on the climbing structures with pure, unrestrained happiness. It was a perfect balance of playfulness and clever subtlety. A backyard that maximized fun for Max while subtly addressing Karen's incessant complaint. The day had finally come. After weeks of planning and construction, Max's new backyard paradise was ready, and I couldn't wait for the ultimate test, Karen's reaction. I had no doubt she would notice immediately. From the moment she stepped outside, the transformation was impossible to ignore. Bright colors, tunnels, slides, swings, and motion-activated toys sprawled across my backyard, creating a scene that was equal parts whimsical and extravagant. It wasn't just a playground, it was a statement. Karen first noticed the slides. Her mouth dropped open, eyes narrowing as she scanned the yard. "What is that?" she stammered, pointing at the climbing structure. I could hear the disbelief in her voice before she even spoke fully. I smiled politely, pretending to be modest about the setup, while Max barked excitedly, running through tunnels and leaping onto the swings with pure joy. Every motion, every joyful squeak, amplified the contrast between Max's happiness and Karen's growing frustration. As she moved closer, the full scope of the playground became undeniable. Motion-activated toys triggered automatically, producing sudden squeaks and chirps, startling Karen at least 3 times. Her hands flew to her face, and she let out a gasp. "This is too much. It's ridiculous," she yelled, waving her HOA papers as if they could somehow undo the entire project. But Max was having the time of his life, completely oblivious to the chaos his presence was causing for Karen. Her complaints escalated as she circled the fence, trying to find any flaw, any imperfection she could exploit. But every feature had been meticulously planned: slides anchored, tunnels secure, grass clean, and every toy in its proper place. There was no legitimate complaint she could make. Every attempt she made to criticize the playground only made her look more frustrated and ridiculous. And secretly, I couldn't help but enjoy the poetic justice. Her obsession with control completely thwarted by a happy dog and his giant playground. Max, sensing the excitement, ran straight to the motion-activated toys, triggering them again. Karen jumped back, yelping in shock. At that moment, I realized the full effect of the playground. It wasn't just a fun space for Max, it was a perfectly executed, playful response to Karen's unreasonable demands. The yard wasn't just beautiful, it was a statement of independence, creativity, and unapologetic joy. By the end of the morning, Karen had stomped back to her house, muttering and fuming, while Max continued to explore his kingdom with boundless energy. The playground had achieved its goal: maximum fun for Max and total bewilderment for Karen. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. I leaned back on the patio, sipping my coffee, watching Max conquer each section of the playground, knowing that Karen would have to witness this every single day. Days passed after the grand unveiling of Max's backyard playground, and the results were nothing short of spectacular. Max was thriving in his new paradise, zooming through tunnels, sliding down slides, and bouncing on swings with endless energy. Every corner of the playground was designed for his delight, and it was working perfectly. But the best part wasn't just Max's joy, it was the ripple effect it had on the neighborhood, and, of course, on Karen. Word started to spread quickly. Neighbors who had previously walked past my yard with polite smiles now lingered, peeking over fences and complimenting the setup. "This is incredible," one neighbor exclaimed. "Where did you get all these ideas?" Another laughed as Max performed a perfect slide landing, squeaking with excitement. The backyard had transformed into a local spectacle, attracting attention not for chaos, but for creativity, ingenuity, and sheer fun. People were genuinely impressed by the attention to detail: the motion-activated toys, the safe climbing structures, the vibrant colors, and even the shaded lounging areas. Max had become the neighborhood celebrity, and the playground had become the talk of every casual conversation. Meanwhile, Karen's reaction was exactly what I had anticipated. Every time she stepped outside or looked over the fence, she was confronted by the reality of Max's magnificent playground. Her complaints became increasingly comical, pointing, muttering, and shaking her head, but with no actual grounds for action. The HOA rules she had relied on to enforce her control suddenly seemed powerless against creativity and good humor. She couldn't deny that the yard was aesthetically pleasing, functional, and, most importantly, brought genuine happiness to a dog and, as it turned out, to several neighbors as well. I watched all of this unfold with a sense of satisfaction. The playground was more than a collection of slides, tunnels, and toys. It was a statement. It showed that unreasonable complaints could be met not with hostility, but with clever solutions that enhanced life for everyone involved. Max's happiness became a visible, undeniable testament to the joy of ingenuity and perseverance. And even Karen, for all her protests, couldn't erase the fact that the yard had become a neighborhood landmark. By the end of the week, the playground was fully integrated into daily life. Max ran freely, neighbors smiled, and Karen, begrudgingly, adjusted to the new normal. What had started as a petty complaint had evolved into a full-blown backyard triumph, an inspiring story of creativity, patience, and a little playful revenge. The lesson was clear. Sometimes the best response to unreasonable criticism is to go bigger, bolder, and happier than anyone could have imagined. Max trotted past the slides one last time that evening, tail high, ears flopping, and I realized it. The playground wasn't just for him. It was a victory for joy, ingenuity, and the subtle art of handling a Karen. And as I watched the sun set over his kingdom, I knew one thing for certain. This was a neighborhood story no one would forget. Follow for more wild HOA stories, creative revenge, and everyday triumphs.